Minnesota Vikings have played their first preseason game, and there are some really intriguing standouts. Plus, we'll talk about JJ McCarthy's debut performance and why there are people just hating on him, and they need to pump the brakes. We're going to talk about all that and more, and leading into a week of joint practices with the New England Patriots. Welcome to the Real Forno Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Real Forno Show, hosted by the one and only Tyler Forness. A to Z Sports sought him out to be their Minnesota Vikings reporter and NFL analyst. And he's a proud contributor over at SKOL North's Purple Daily. Tyler is also the captivating host of The Good, The Bad, and The Hungry on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network, and a founding member of Vikings First and SKOL.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Real Forno Show, sponsored by our friends at Underdog Fantasy. My name's Tyler Forness. With me, as always, in the top left corner is producer Dave. And Dave, you got to tell me about this thing that you had on Sunday that you were just telling me about. Thielen to JJ McCarthy, to Adam Thielen. I need the context of Jerry Rice to Adam Thielen. I need more.
We were talking about age and when players fall off the cliff, and most wide receivers, by the time they hit 35, and Adam Thielen will be 35 here at the end of the month, they're usually hit the wall hard by then. Mm-hmm. They've already achieved the top of the hill, and they've already gone down the backside of it. And I just pointed out that Jerry Rice, in his year 35 season, did not do very well because he blew out his knee in a preseason game, and then he came back in December and blew out his patella. But the next year, when he was 36, had well over 1,000 yards. And that even though he is a unicorn, I can compare possibilities of whether Adam Thielen could be decent at this age versus not.
I can see where you're coming from.
Now, it's an outsider. On the percentage-wise, he'll be 35, which generally means you're well on the downslope of your career, but there is that small percentage.
I also think that I need to go listen to the episode, and I'll get even more context, which you all should do after this show. But I think it might be smarter to compare him to like the age 42 season, because Rice is just bonkers. Because he was 41 or 42 when the Raiders made the Super Bowl, and he had 1,200 yards because he's just an absolute disgusting monster. That dude is just he's the most insane. He's the most insane receiver of all time.
He's a unicorn.
I also don't think, and people have been talking about this. Maybe we'll just kind of start the show off with this. People need to honestly shut up about the fact that the Vikings need to add wide receiver talent. They don't. They just don't. The only reason why they should add wide receiver talent, it has nothing to do with Jordan Addison. Nothing. They whipped the 49ers and the Texans last year without Jordan Addison and without TJ Hawkinson. Now you add in Hawkinson along with an improved offensive line in Jordan Mason. There's no reason why they should panic at a wide receiver. You only add a wide receiver if you think your depth is absolute dog water. It's bad. I don't think it's bad. I don't think they think it's bad. It's fine. You just run a bunch of 12 personnel, a bunch of 21 personnel, use your backs and tight ends, and that's what you want to do to make McCarthy's life easier anyway. So I don't really think that you need to do that. You only do it if you really think that your depth is poor. And to me, there are no signs saying that it is poor other than they're just no-name guys. Lucky Jackson looks fine in camp. Then your fifth wide receiver is probably Ty Felton, who you drafted in the third round. His preseason game was relatively solid. Wasn't great. Wasn't bad either. And it was a good, solid debut for him. I think we get too infatuated on an overall level, Dave, at with this Madden philosophy where you can just go and add guys. I remember the first Madden game I like played seriously. Like we had like Madden 97 and 98 for Sega, but I wasn't playing it like super serious. I was a kid. I just wanted to mess around and have fun. But I remember playing Madden 02, and you could go and sign left tackle Bruce Armstrong, who's like an 88 overall, and just add him to your team for like no money because he was basically quasi-retired at that point. Like, you can't just do that in the NFL. That's not how this works. There are so many ramifications to signing a player, not just for this year, but for next year, because the Vikings right now have $25.3 million in salary cap space. But when you have that space, they have a certain amount of it they want to roll over. That is in their plans. So if you want to add an Amari Cooper, if you want to add a Gabe Davis, it's because you think they can, one, help you right now, and two, they are significantly better than the poor group that they would perceive that they have. And I just don't see that as a thing. And I think we need to calm down about it.
It was all hypothetical. If we're in, the whole premise was if we're in win now mode and you have the wide receiver 3, 4, 5, 6 dropping passes, not being good. If you just go get somebody that has higher productivity, whether it be Amari Cooper or in this case, Adam Thielen, and the reason we picked Adam Thielen was because everybody has been talking about Adam Thielen and that he does have ties to Kevin O'Connell and he does have ties to JJ McCarthy. Would that make sense? I mean, and that was the basis of the hypothetical.
So my tangent to just talk about this is less about your Adam Thielen discussion, just more about the overall context. Because I do think if Thielen becomes available, which I'm going to be real, if you look at that Panthers wide receiver room, it's very possible he becomes available because they have a lot of youth and a lot of talented youth and guys you just want to keep around. Thielen might be better than one or two of those guys now, but is he going to be better than, is what Thielen is now better than that player in 2 years? That's where the red flag gets raised and be like, hey, maybe not. Maybe
it's
we
only
need
a
to keep
season.
these young guys. Yeah. And this year, Thielen is currently projected to have a cap hit of just over $10 million for the Panthers. If they trade him, it drops to 5 for them. And the incurring team gets $7 million because of, and that's of a cap hit, $750,000 that is per game roster bonuses. So if he's not healthy, he don't get that money and you get a cap credit next year. If he ends up becoming available and you can strike a deal with the Panthers, hey, why don't you eat another $4 million on that? We'll give you a 6th round pick. Okay, sure. I'd be fine for that. And I think he would be a really good 3rd, 4th wide receiver option to bring in. And the benefit here is it's not like an Amari Cooper has to learn everything. He already knows the offense. He already knows McCarthy because they work out together in the offseason. It makes perfect sense. And you know what? What Adam Thielen is now would fit perfectly as a wide receiver 3 or 4. He's not what he was. And I think that will be, to a point, a mental barrier for some people that are Vikings fans, because it is for everybody who's a fan of a team. When one of your favorites, a guy who used to be really, really good, starts to really be on that downward trend and they just don't have it anymore. And Thielen doesn't have it anymore from what he used to. He's just now a solid possession receiver hand as a wide receiver 3 or 4. And you know what? That's still a valuable piece to have. Hey, I need a 3rd down and 5. Go run me a little stick route and just get open in the zone and sit. I'll find you. There's value to that. There's a lot of value. Maybe Thielen only gets 30 catches for 350 yards and 4 touchdowns. Who cares? Because you know what? That is still added value to the offense. So if that ends up working out and making sense, I think it would be worth exploring. I also don't think you need to do it. And if you don't do it, I think this offense will be just fine. Now, things can change if Naylor all of a sudden starts to just play like crap. Same with Lucky Jackson. Same with your next guys up there, Thomas and Deshaun Jones. If they just all start looking like crap, then you have to probably address it. As things sit now, you don't. And there is no need for a panic. There's no need to worry about it. Because guess what? You have a top 5 tight end, TJ Hawkinson. You have probably the best blocking tight end in the world in Josh Oliver. You have a dual threat in the running back room with Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason. No need to panic. You will be just fine. And that's okay. I don't want to hear more about how the Vikings need to do this or need to do that, because the only thing they need to do is continue developing the talent in the room right now. And I think they'll be in a good spot when that happens.
And continue to win football games.
Oh, yeah.
Simple.
Absolutely.
Now, speaking of winning a football game, our Minnesota Vikings defeated the Houston Texans 20-10 on Saturday. Mm-hmm. How impressed were you with JJ McCarthy's poise in his preseason debut?
I thought he was fine. The biggest thing, and I wrote about his how do you call it? One of the biggest things I wanted to see were just how he handles himself, how he handles the situation.
Thus, I asked poised.
The process is the progress was the mantra last year. And his expectations for this game were really weird because he's not a normal quarterback. Nothing about his career has been normal. In fact, it's the ultimate outlier. No rookie quarterback that's drafted in the first round has ever missed the entire season because of an injury. It's the first time it's ever happened. There have been plenty of first round picks who never see the field, but not one who missed an entire season. Not one game was he eligible to play because he was injured. So it's really interesting from that perspective. And he goes into the preseason now where he needs to try and figure out, hey, I need to figure out how to get more reps. And the Vikings need to figure out, well, is it worth playing him in these games to get those reps? What is the cost-benefit analysis of that? And they chose the path of giving him reps, which I will defend. I think that's a smart move. And they played it very calculated, very careful, and they played him a series with the ones. And Kevin O'Connell said post-game, I wanted to play him more, but I did not want to play our first-teamers more, so I had to take him out. I did not want to play him with a bunch of second-team guys. Fair. Smart. You're insulating your quarterback, but giving him opportunities to learn and figure it out. And the big thing with McCarthy, I thought the process that he used throughout the entirety of the game was objectively good. And I thought there were some little things to clean up. I like the throw to Addison where you kind of had to dive for it. I thought the ball placement was pretty good, but it could have been a little bit better because you want that ball away from the cornerback. If he has to dive for it, it's not a perfectly ideal situation, but there's nothing wrong with it because it's away from the corner, which is what you want in that situation. I think the back leg swing it's still swinging a little bit, but it's not swinging a lot. He's making good decisions, good reads. The run for the first down I thought was great because he saw the field, he saw what was going on, bailed the pocket, picked up the yard, stayed safe, getting out of bounds. All great things to see. And my big thing with McCarthy is I wanted to see the process. And O'Connell talked about he just wanted to emulate game day because you can only do that so much during a practice setting. Now, I think they'll be able to do some of that during the joint practices with the Patriots, but you can only emulate the practice setting so well. And I think the Vikings did a really good job of utilizing everything with this group and figuring out how to maneuver and make things work. And all the assistant coaches having their jobs to do, McCarthy getting all the signals from O'Connell and relaying them to his teammates. All reports are good that process went over very well. And I think that's great to hear. As far as on the field, he led them field goal. The Lucky Jackson one was a titch early. If he throws that a quarter of a second later, Lucky Jackson brings that in. But it was a smidge high and a smidge out front. That kind of stuff will get cleaned up. And I thought it was good. I didn't mind a lot of the ball placement. The rollout where McCarthy was rolling out to his left and threw it to Addison, I thought that ball placement was a little off because he threw it just a little too far inside. The corner couldn't get there anyways. That ball you want to the outside. You really do. But the ball was never actually in danger, so it's one where, hey, learning opportunity, but it ended up being okay. Overall, I don't really see how you could have asked for much more. You got to see the process. They got to go through it as an organization, as a football team. And now you go into these joint practices where McCarthy can continue to learn and do so against another defense. And I think that's going to be a big thing because you're going to learn a lot going against the same defense week after week, day after day. But it's good to test yourself against other defenses that will run different kinds of stuff, that will do different things. And that's what you're going to get with the New England Patriots coming to town, even though they're likely going to run a similar base package of what you get with the Minnesota Vikings and Brian Flores. Because Flores, Vrabel, they come from the same generic tree. Now, you can have...
Generic or genetic?
You can have two apple trees, but one can be a Washington apple, one can be a Honeycrisp. They're the same, but they are significantly different once you bite in. And I think those nuanced differences can be really helpful to a guy like McCarthy as he continues to learn and grow. And I'm really intrigued to see how this ends up looking, how this ends up working. Justin Jefferson hopefully will be back. I want to see Jefferson versus Christian Gonzalez. That is going to rip. That is going to feed families. Like, those are the kind of matchups you want on the field. And I can't wait for that. I think there are other things to really be excited about and look forward to. How's the defensive line going to go against Garrett Bradbury? Are they just going to bully him to oblivion because he left? Now, it wasn't his choice that he left, but they all like, I remember Michael Jordan in The Last Dance, and The Last Dance, one, is a tremendous documentary, but two, it is significantly slanted towards Michael Jordan. Jordan would take anything and use it to spin it in his mind like a politician and use it as a way to get personal and just beat the ever living piss out of you on the court. He would take anything. Anything. Even somebody saying, "Good game, Michael," he would use that the next day and beat ass. It's just a different level. So how are some of those things going to end up manifesting on the field? Like, is there going to be some of that with Bradbury in the defensive line? I bet there is. Really do. But I'm really excited about the potential for this position group, for these joint practices, because basically it's like you're getting 2 preseason games back to back. You get way more from joint practices than you do the games. And I talked about the games at the top. Brock Purdy got a lot of run in that 2022 game. But that's not everything. Like, not everybody's going to be Brock Purdy, but you're going to see some really talented guys get a lot of playing time. We're going to talk about a couple of those guys here later because I think they really stood out. There were some really interesting standouts overall in that preseason game. And of course, I was there live with my wife. We hadn't been to a Vikings game together in 4 years because obviously with my job now, I can't go unless I'm in the press box, and that hasn't happened yet, but we're working on it. So I'm really excited to kind of talk about the rest of the game. I want to ask you though, Dave, before we kind of move on, what did you think of McCarthy's performance? Was there anything that you were concerned about?
Concerned? No. I was looking for thought process and how he handled himself, and his pocket presence I thought was brilliant. It was very, very good, unlike a previous quarterback we had. There's when things were going wrong, he was stepping to a side just a little bit, and he was repositioning and cocking and throwing the ball. The ball to Addison, he threw before Addison, got out of his break. And it was the same route that we saw on the practice one. Mm-hmm. Now, Addison had to dive for it, but that was okay. Got it. The one to Lucky, I thought he released a little too early and a little too hot. And he even commented after the fact that he was so sped up from going against Beeflo's defense that he needed to slow down a bit. And it's just, I chuckled because I think he will get attuned once they start playing games, real games. He will tune in to what the opposition is giving him. And I think he'll be dialed in, from whether it be from last year when he evaluated every single defense in the league and all the players and all the defensive coordinators and all the other stuff. I think all that's going to be a benefit to him. So now, once he gets through practice and going through Brian Flores' D, he's going to start seeing the practice team come up with, say, if this was a real game, what the Patriots are going to run on defense. And even though Patriots, they come from the same lineage, nothing beats Brian Flores' defense. As of right now, I think the dude is...
Except Ben Johnson.
Well, true.
Just Ben Johnson and Sean McVay.
That's it. But I think he's going to be tuned in. But I wanted to see him, how he did, and how everybody looked. Not just him, but how he led the huddle, how he broke the huddle, how all that, the communication off the sideline. I didn't see any hitches. I didn't see any, miscommunication. I didn't see anything that went wrong when he was under center. When he's looking and reading the defense, I didn't see him, inadvertently kill or, get confused and call a timeout. And I saw none of that. Well, he had a decent first appearance. Would I have liked to see him play more? Yeah, sure. But I agree with Coach O'Connell, when he didn't want to play the rest of the starters, he needs to come out.
Yeah.
And he did.
I think it's a no-brainer that he comes out. It's not worth it. I mean, if it's his rookie season, like last year, if he doesn't get injured, I think you play him more. I really do. And I think that in itself is going to be real interesting. But that is already passed. I'm fascinated to kind of see how things will end up looking forward. And one thing to do as we look forward, Dave, go stop by our friends at Underdog Fantasy and have a little extra fun. I had a 3-way pick'em from this past weekend with the Vikings, and I got 2 of them right. JJ McCarthy under 55 passing yards. He threw for 30. And Sam Howell over 88 passing yards, which he threw for 105. Those things are why Underdog is so fun. Jaden Higgins didn't get over 22. I thought he'd have a couple passes down the field. Didn't happen, but that's what makes it fun, and it creates a little bit of extra while you're watching these preseason games. I'm going to have a little fun this weekend with the CFL. I'm probably going to do another one with the Minnesota Vikings. Maybe I'll go over on Xavier Scott's rushing total after his 40-yard performance this past Saturday. Maybe float a little under on someone like Lucky Jackson because he's probably not going to play a whole lot with the joint practices. It just gives you an extra element of fun. And if you use the promo code Forno, Forno, you will get up to $1,000 in bonus credits on your first deposit. Easy, simple, a good time. And all you have to do is be in one of the states that you see on the map on the screen. And you know what? It is fun, but if you find yourself having too much fun, just remember, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Yep. Now, I want to highlight, it was Robbie says, anybody worried about the Vikes preseason game, please watch the Packers and the Bears game. And you're just talking underdog. You want to make some money? Bet on how lousy the players are on those 2 teams.
It's so interesting. Because like the weird thing about preseason is I'll never forget the year that the Lions went 0-16. They were undefeated and they looked great in the preseason. Preseason, it's too hard to really gather anything specific about preseason because there's so many different variables that you will never have in the regular season. So I like to look at how much playing time is that guy going to get, and could they end up putting up some yardage? Because like the Patriots put up 48 points against the Commanders. In the regular season, Commanders are probably favored by like 6 on a neutral field. So those things matter. And I do think that there's some intrigue about some of that stuff, but I'm not really that concerned about the Bears and Packers during the preseason. I will say there are some traits and some abilities that can translate from the preseason. And that is the Packers can't catch anything. They have terrible hands. All of them. All of them are bad at catching the football. It's getting to be a borderline epidemic in Green Bay. And that is something I'm going to be monitoring heavily because I think they led the league in lost yards on drops last year. They dropped so many footballs. If Dontavian Wicks could catch, he'd be a top receiver in the league because he continuously gets open. Yeah, and Armor in the comments makes a note of Alexander Madison, who had neck surgery after getting injured on Sunday against the Chicago Bears. That is just brutal.
Hey, the injury plague is hot and heavy, and it seems serious so far this year, whether it be Morris, I think is his name, from the Lions.
Maurice Norris, yes.
Norris. Or our very own Rondale Moore, which we still haven't heard any results on the MRI.
So apparently, Rondale Moore has went to Instagram and put like blessed or something in his Instagram story, which could mean that the injury, like what's really interesting sometimes about like knee injuries is the more painful ones often aren't as serious, which I know it sounds kind of odd, but that can often be the case. Maybe it's not as bad. Maybe it's still significant, but maybe it's like a super bad MCL sprain, but it's like an 8-week injury instead of a season-long injury. So we'll see. We'll see. We'll answer Delton's question, then we're going to move on to a couple things that I want to talk about. And he asks, why the hell is our media so high on LDR? I've never seen it and still don't. I'm going to be honest. I do see it. I don't think it's like we see it as he's going to be the backup nose tackle this year. He's going to work in for 10 to 25 snaps a game based on whatever's going on. Like, we're not expecting this guy to be like this massive difference maker. He's still going to be a backup, but he has taken strides. He looks stronger. He looks to be in better shape, and he's still got that hot motor. I thought early on in the game against the Texans, he got washed out quite a bit, but he kind of figured it out, grew throughout the process. And you know what? I liked it. I thought it was good to see. So I do think that there's something there with, what's his name? With Levi Drake Rodriguez. But I don't think that anybody's anointing him as a starter. And I think when we see praise, I think that's something that we could do a little bit better about as a collective whole, because I do this too. And I'm sure Dave does as well. When we see praise, sometimes we just see it in a vacuum and don't see it for what it is. Don't see it within the context of who they're talking about. And with LDR, he's grown up a lot. He's gotten in a much, much better NFL body, but he's not a starter and nobody's claiming that he is. So, Delton, if you don't believe that he's not a good backup, okay. I think that's a fair opinion. But the big thing for me is I don't think anybody's talking about him as anything more than a backup. And I do think he's shown flashes, but they need to turn flashes into consistency. Cause and effect is a really good one because I think this is a really good talking point before we move on from quarterbacks about Sam Howell. Should Sam Howell be worried about making a team, and do you see us bringing another wide receiver? Wide receiver, right now, no, but never say never. Sam Howell, what's interesting is I always thought he was more of a gamer, and you saw that. He played well during the game. And a lot of the issues that you saw in practice weren't there. Some guys are just meant to be gamers. Like, it's not like they're not going to try and practice, but once the spotlight is on, it's just different. I think Sam Howell is one of those guys. And because Sam Howell is one of those guys, I do think he needs to be looked at from a different lens. So I don't think he's in danger of losing his job. I do think if a better option presents itself, then it's possible. But I'm not convinced that he's going to lose his job. I do think it is possible. So we'll see. We'll see how this all ends up looking. But right now, I like where things are at with the Vikings on the quarterback spot. Brosmer was good. Brett Rippon was bad. If that's that way for the next two games, it's pronounced Brosmer. Brosmer's making the team. Straight up. Couple things I want to talk about are on the defensive side of the football.
Did you hear how to pronounce his name from Arif Hassan?
Yep. Arif Hassan, University of Minnesota alum. But yeah, it is Brosmer. And stuff happens with pronunciations. It gets missed. Sometimes guys don't even tell you for like 3-4 years. Like, oh, by the way, it's this. Wait, what? There's a wrestler.
Ask moi.
Mm-hmm. There's a wrestler's name is it's spelled PAC. We called him Pac for years. It's Pac. And I still struggle with that one because it's like, all right, I thought it was Pac for years. Now you have to go through unconditioning yourself with it. And yeah, it can be frustrating. But a couple things on defense that I really want to talk about. I thought it was interesting that Mekhi Blackmon played extensively. He played well into the second half. I also didn't think it was a big deal. I don't think it's a signal to anything. I think they wanted to play him to just get him reps because he got 1 day of training camp practice last year when he tore his ACL. They just wanted to get him reps and experience. I don't think it means he's on the chopping block. I don't think it means anything. I think he's still solidly CB4. Maybe he can work his way up to CB3. They wanted to get him experience. They wanted to play him a bunch. The guy that played the most,
that they moved Blackmon into the nickel role quite a few times.
Oh, they did last year too. He switched between inside and outside, so that's not a surprise.
Like he's Brian Murphy's understudy.
I didn't really read it as that. He's just the guy that can play both. And when you have bigger corners like McLaughlin and Vaughn, a guy like Blackman's going to slide inside. And the idea with Murphy is if you don't have somebody who you love that in the slot, they want to put him in the slot. So that's why like guys like Okudah and Isaiah Rodgers were targets instead of a traditional slot corner, because you want to put your best guy in the slot, because NFL teams, and they took this from college, because when it comes to play calling, high school goes to college, goes to the NFL. The people that are really that creative are doing it at the high school level, and then it gets taken from college or by college football and the NFL, because they're the ones who are doing most of the innovation. Now, that's not to say that the NFL and college football aren't doing innovation themselves, but you can only take what the lower levels are giving you. You can only take the players that college or the high school football is giving you, and you can only take what the college level is giving you if you're the NFL. That's why RPOs became a thing. That's why we saw some read option. So those factors matter when we're having these discussions. And
we saw Wildcat for a while.
Mm-hmm. And one of the big things with like a guy like Murphy is he can just kick inside, but that's also a good thing because CeeDee Lamb plays almost exclusively in the slot, and he's making $34 million a year. They do that because they just believe that Lamb is just that good in the slot. Why take him out? He can play outside. He can dominate from the outside. But why would you take him away from the outside when he's that good on the outside? Or sorry, why take him away from the inside? He's that good in the slot. Just let him thrive there. And you know what? One of the best receivers in football. So having a guy like Murphy who you want to play outside because he's that good, but when you have a guy like CeeDee Lamb on the other side, man, he just kicks inside, no problem. So I think those things matter too. And when you have Blackman, when you have Vaughn, who played the most snaps at corner, by the way, I thought he looked solid, and McLaurin on the outside, they're taller, longer corner. Blackman just kicks in. And I think having guys with that kind of versatility, I get the sense from Brian Flores, he does not want slot corners on this team. He wants to have corners who can play the slot, but he does not want a slot corner. Because when you have a slot corner, you're pigeonholed there. You're not a guy who theoretically can play outside. You are a slot corner. Those things matter. And I do think it's really interesting, the overall concept of how the Vikings are running their defense. But I thought corner was really interesting, how they kind of position guys. Tavier Thomas and Khalif Halassi ended up kind of transitioning back to safety. And Halassi, according to Ben Gessling, has been wowing coaches. And he had an interception on Saturday. That's not nothing. Something to keep an eye on, especially because the Vikings have loved to carry 5 safeties. Some just park in the back of your head. But we're going to go to the trenches, Dave. I thought the defensive line had arguably the best day. And when you look at it, it came from a couple people. You had Gabe Murphy, who had a tremendous day, 1.5 sacks, consistently getting pressure in the backfield. And it was great to see because he wowed a lot during training camp last year before he hurt his knee and missed all 3 preseason games, missed over half the season, only played 35 snaps last year. I thought the big thing was going to be with him was going to figure out how he was going to mitigate that arm length. 30.5-inch arms, which I believe is 6th percentile. Atrocious arm length for an edge rusher. By the way, Bo Richter also has 30.5-inch arms. So your 2 like backup edge rushers to your 3 starters, I have really short arms. But I think one thing that's really interesting that Von Miller said, I can't remember what podcast it was, but he talked about how pass rush moves are overrated. And his reasoning was most pass rushers, like about 90% of the wins are because I'm bigger, faster, and stronger than you. And I'm just beating you quicker to point A. I'm just beating you to the quarterback. We glamorized, and this was his theory, these pass rush moves, like the ghost move where you just kind of like, you go and then you just kind of dip your shoulder and get underneath. Well, those are great. And they're great for highlight clips, but you only maybe get like Von Miller has over 100 sacks. He's like, I maybe have 5 sacks with that move. Like, it's all about getting to from point A to point B faster. And because I'm a great athlete, guess what? I can get there faster and I can get through you because I'm also strong. Those things matter more. And I think sometimes we forget about that when we have these like length discussions and we have these discussions about things that are a detriment to your game. It's not always that simple. Murphy is a 93rd percentile overall athlete, including his arm length. And if you can't touch him, it does not matter how long your arms are. There will be situations where he just gets absolutely worked because he doesn't have length. That's going to happen. But how good are you on those other reps? Are you good enough to where if you get washed out a few times a game because of length, where it doesn't matter? Or it matters significantly less because you're able to get in the backfield and create havoc? Those are the questions that are more worth answering than just saying, oh, he has short arms, he'll never be good. Well, there are plenty of guys like Joe Thomas had like 32.5-inch arms, and he's one of the best left tackles I've ever seen play the game. Sometimes length just, it's a factor in the discussion, but it doesn't matter. And the games that Richter and Murphy had made me significantly more confident in the depth of that offensive or the defensive line. I really thought Tyler Batty would have a better chance of making the roster because of what he brings as an edge rusher, because he's much more of a power guy. This dude could 2-gap. So when that offensive lineman handles him, He could handle his gap to the left and his gap to the right. And he could shed that blocker and get the tackle. He struggled a little bit on Saturday. And you know what? That's okay because it's his first game. Now, how do you grow and evolve from there? How do you make things better? And I want to see how that continues to grow, develop. And how do you take that next step? Because that's going to be a big thing for all of these guys. And there's no guarantees that Murphy's going to make the roster. But if it were to be made right now, you bet your ass he's on that roster. Richter was really good too. And Richter, Dave, was awesome on special teams. That's how he's going to make the team. But having a really good run on defense is going to be huge for him. Because remember, Richter played edge and he played off ball at Air Force. And it was Air Force, but he's a very good size adjusted athlete. He's explosive. He can do a lot of different things for you. And that versatility is huge for a guy like Brian Flores. So seeing him be able to win with he won with a spin move on that one where he got half a sack. He's doing a good job. And I think that he can continue to grow moving forward. And I like where things are going with Richter, just like I like things are going with Gabe Murphy. Like this edge rusher depth is real. And Dallas Turner is a third starter. So now your two depth guys who will probably, with what I think this incarnation of the defense is going to be, they'll probably pay 20 to 30 snaps total a game. But they can do enough to where you feel comfortable them playing 20 to 30 snaps a game. And I like where things are. Plus, Murphy has a really intriguing ability because of how fast, quick, and he's small. He's not small in weight. He's 251, which is fine for a stand-up edge rusher. But he's like 6'1". He's short enough and can get low to the ground where UCLA would use him as an interior rusher because he would be so quick off the ball, he could get underneath the guard's arms to where the guards couldn't really touch him. And he would create havoc that way. So that gives you an extra ability too. Plus with Batty, one thing that could really hurt his chances to make the roster, Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins, very similar player. Very similar in size, length, and objectively, Dawkins is a better athlete in a linear sense. So that could end up hindering him. Plus, you have another UDFA, Dave, that is emerging on the scene, and I talked about him a couple times on this show, Elijah Williams, the UDFA from Morgan State, who only signed after he was an invite. He didn't have a contract before getting an invite to mandatory minicamp. But Kevin O'Connell had a really interesting quote about him because he always asks, as he said, his position coach is like, who's really good? And Marcus Dixon told O'Connell, you got to watch this guy. And he said, I'll be the first one to tell you, watching D-line individual for an hour and a half is not what I choose to do with my free time a lot. But he's like, guys like that are hungry. And also, for whatever reason, how did you end up being a tryout guy? Which is what he was. He didn't have a contract. Guys like that are 4 times more likely to make the 53-man roster than a standard UDFA because they go into rookie minicamp against their contemporaries with nothing. They have nothing except a stipend to come participate, which I'm guessing is a few $1,000s, which a few $1,000s ain't nothing. But you get that stipend and then you earn a contract. So now Williams has a deal. And within that deal, he is making waves. He's 6'3", 270. He looked way more than 270 on the field. I think he's put on some weight, but the Vikings have him listed at 270. And he was awesome. 21 snaps, 15 pass rush snaps, 4 of those were pressures. And you could see how he was winning. That was sustainable. He could power over guys, and he held up his end of the bargain from a power perspective against backup depth offensive linemen. That power profile is going to be better against top fledged offensive linemen, which it obviously should be. But the one thing that really stood out to me was his ability to absorb that power and his ability to use his hands, which that is going to come into play when you're facing the big boys. Not big as in actual size. They're all big, but big as in yeah, these are the top guys. He wouldn't let offensive linemen get their hands cleanly on him, and he would use them to kind of push guys off balance and be able to get penetration into the backfield. I was intrigued by Elijah Williams because he got that training camp or that mini camp invite, then earned a contract. That's a red flag. Like, I don't know, maybe it's a green flag. Like that raises an alarm for me when a guy gets signed like that. So not only did he get signed like that, but he had 33 sacks and 52 tackles for loss across 4 seasons at Morgan State. His freshman year was less productive than his other 3 by a significant margin. But those are impressive numbers for an interior defensive lineman. Now, it's at Morgan State, which is at the FCS level. Morgan State is an HBCU, and the level of football that they play is technically 3 tiers below the National Football League. So how much is that really going to translate? And that's why I kept saying, I don't know what this guy is, but I'm really intrigued because that kind of production can translate immediately. It can also mean absolutely nothing. So what is Williams going to do? How is he going to do it? And guess what? Williams shined through on Saturday afternoon, and I thought he was real good. Can he keep this up? Can he be real good on Wednesday? Can he be real good on Thursday? Can he be real good on Saturday? And then next Friday? Those are going to answer way more questions than anything else. Can you be real good all the time? One is great. Do it again. And then do it again. And then do it again. Those are the people that make this team. That's how Jalen Redmond made the team last year. He was an XFL guy signed in June. He made the team because his camp was tremendous. Taki Taimani made this team because his camp was tremendous. And you couldn't deny those guys. They earned those roster spots because they played incredibly well. Williams has 1 of 3 down. Can he do it again? Can he keep it up during training camp practices? Those are going to be the biggest tests for him. But he got the objectively the biggest of them all out of the way. He came out and played really well in the first game. You can't start impressing unless you do it for the first time. And he did. And I thought it was really, really good. Now, T-Bass makes a really good point. And this is where I try to keep my expectations in check. Preseason football is somewhat of an illusion because you are going against like third teamers. But you have to start somewhere. If you can't dominate third teamers, I don't want you on my team. So now, because he's dominated against the lesser version of NFL competition, guess what? He's probably going to get a few reps with the 2s. How do you do against those guys? Then he might get a couple reps with the 1s, where teams will always throw guys out. Last year, they threw Levi Drake Rodriguez against the 1s. How do you handle it? You're probably going to fail. How do you fail? You're going to have a couple reps in a row. You failed 1 rep, or are you going to fail again? Or if you fail, are you going to do the same thing? Are you going to grow throughout the course of those reps? And I think Williams now is in a position where he's going to get a couple more of those opportunities. And what do you do with those? I remember Dwight McGlothern had a first team rep when I was at practice. The first rep he had, pass breakup. That's how you make a statement, and that's how you make a team. So how is Williams going to take this great performance and build on it? He's far from making this roster right now. But you have to start somewhere, and he's got that building block, and I really want to see how he takes this thing.
I thought he did well, exceptionally.
I
let's see if he turns into the next Adam Thielen.
Yeah, I do. I still think Dante Fleming is going to be that next Adam Thielen, where he plays well enough, makes the practice squad, and then makes the team in a year or 2. That's the guy I'm watching for. There's something about.
But was Fleming a tryout?
No, he wasn't. He was a standard UDFA signing.
No, see, I'm referring to the tryout.
I know. I'm referring to just the wide receiver path of practice squad, then making the team at some point. But a lot of really interesting things to take from this game. I'm going to continue kind of watching the film. I haven't really got to watch the offense much. NFL Pro is just not a great product. I wish it was. Like, the idea of it is good, but it's just a pain in that keister. So, is what it is. But I'm really excited to kind of keep delving in. I want to watch Max Brosmer because I heard he was really good, and we had already left the stadium by the time he ended up getting to play. Oh, I did it again. See, I told you it's the Pac thing. But we're gonna have more. We're gonna have a lot more on Thursday when I break down both joint practices. And then I will be out all weekend because my brother's getting married on Saturday. So we'll be in Brainerd for that. But Dave, a lot of really, really interesting things when it comes to this Minnesota Vikings team. I'm excited about where things are trending.
I think it's good. Now, speaking of Max Brosmer, do you think he makes the squad over Brett Rippon with this one game?
I've been predicting him to make the squad over Rippon just because with Brosmer, there is, and I talked to Luke about this when I did Locked On Vikings. He's interesting in the fact that when you have, like, he's had a relationship with O'Connell for a couple of years. O'Connell always goes to the University of Minnesota Pro Day, and Brosmer threw at the Pro Day in 24, and then he threw, obviously, when he was in the pre-draft process. He's got this kind of skill set and intelligence that O'Connell looks for because it's about throwing over the middle and doing it consistently, doing it with anticipation. That was his biggest thing. He was arguably the best quarterback in college football in that third and intermediate over the middle, which, if you watch a lot of college football, there aren't a lot of quarterbacks who consistently throw over the middle. They throw to the sidelines. So you can throw over the middle. It's like a cheat code, kind of. So I'm intrigued to kind of see how everything will look, how Brosmer continues to do. But it looks like he's doing good. It looks like he's playing better. And I just don't believe Rippon is good at all. And if Brosmer can show enough to where, hey, I'm worth developing, you have Sam Howell, keep me instead of him, I think it's very possible he makes the team. But we'll see. There's a lot of camp left, a lot of preseason time. But Brosmer is going to get time, a lot of time in those games.
What I saw from him was making his reads. First, second, third, fourth even. And that, for a rookie UDFA, I thought was impressive.
Oh, that's good. I'm excited to kind of see it. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet, so that's going to be a lot of fun for me. I'll watch it tonight into tomorrow, and there's going to be a lot of fun.
But you can see his head just go bing, 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 bing.
And that's big because one of the big things with quarterback is you want your feet and eyes to be married. You want them to be doing the same things. And your eyes, you don't want them to stay in one place too long. You want them to dart. You want them to go read to read. And then when they whip their head
back, he looked off the safety.
Yeah. When they whip their head back, like if this is their fourth read, then they whip back. Oh, they're going back to their first read. Those are good. Those are good things. I'm really excited to kind of see what he ends up looking like. And there's more to it. One game does not determine whether you make the team or not. But one game is a huge indicator if you have a chance to make the team or not. Now, if he were to have just been awful and he just improved significantly over the next few games, that also shows something. It shows the willingness to be coached, the willingness to improve, and you have the ability to do both of those things. So there's a lot to it, but I think we should be excited about the idea of developing Brosmer as that third quarterback. Maybe he's your long-term backup. And you know what? That's a valuable piece to have. So, yeah, that is our show. We are going to be back on Thursday. Dave, are you guys moving to Bloggers to Saturday yet?
No.
Okay. Remember, we will let you guys know when that Tool Bloggers shift is coming. It could come earlier this year, but at the absolute latest, it will be the Saturday, Saturday, September 6th.
It will be.
Tool Bloggers will be on Saturdays moving forward. So remember that. It could come a little earlier, and if it does, we'll tell you.
No, this week will be on Sunday because we had the preseason game on Saturday.
Good point. And the following preseason game is on Friday, which I'm excited for a Friday preseason game. I like it. And they've been doing Saturday doubleheaders for the CFL. I don't want to go up against the CFL. I just want to watch the CFL. Go Winnipeg. Thanks for joining us. We'll have a lot more. And be sure to follow me on Twitter at Real Forno. Join us in the Discord. Yes. A lot of good discussion there. A really, really good discussion throughout the course of the entire game. We got our live chat channel, and you can get all of my work on the Discord, so you never have to go looking for it. It will be right there. And we let you know whenever there's a new show, either on audio form or on YouTube, which is why we suggest you subscribe to both, because not all audio will go on the YouTube and vice versa. But in the meantime, thank you guys so much for joining us. I'm Tyler. He's Dave. SKOL Vikings, everybody.
SKOL Vikings. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell to get notifications. It helps us grow this community that we all love, our Minnesota Vikings. And on behalf of Tyler Forness and myself, Dave Stefano, thank you so dearly for watching the Real Forno Show. SKOL, everyone!